Okay, so welcome everybody who has joined. Today's TikTok is going to be presented to us by Chantal and Fatima and Gideon. Yay! Okay, so the basic premise is going to be we're going to have each of them come and tell us why their platform is wonderful or not wonderful, whichever one they've decided. And then we're going to save the questions for the end. Okay, so it's going to be kind of like a panel. If you have questions in between, you obviously are welcome to put them in the chat, and then I'll read them out when we get to the end. So we're going to start today off with Figma. So, Gideon. Okay, are you ready, Gideon?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Do we need to do the theme song entrance, or is that just a joke? I thought we were serious.
Oh, if you have it, I'm like, do it.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop getting the screen.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me know when you guys can see.
Okay.
Is everything, can everyone see?
It's busy loading. Okay, now we can see. Great, go for it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go through this. I mean, when I was doing my research, I actually thought I'd only be researching Figma, but everything ultimately is always comparative wise. So I did have to read up a little. I've used Sketch before. My XD knowledge is very basic. So yeah, I feel that I approach this with as much objective and subjective thinking as possible. So basically, when I first, when I joined Retro, I had no experience with Figma or XD, and I only knew a bit about Sketch. So when this is now a mindset that I had before when I started, and I thought, okay, the pros of Figma sound great, but I was so used to Sketch that if anything I heard that was more difficult or negative, it also seemed as bad. So everything just seemed relatively bad or difficult at once. After doing this research, I find that it's changed my perspective, and I mean, I can confidently say that I do see the pros outweighing the cons. Obviously, nothing is perfect. Figma does have some ways of improving, but ultimately, at the rate that it's improving, some people used to say, oh, Figma's problem is it has a smaller plugin library than Sketch. But that's changed a lot because obviously they just didn't have a head start like Sketch has. And other situations when it comes to using XD, you have the full range of the Adobe Creative Cloud library and all those applications, which is amazing. But all in all, I think specifically from a UX UI perspective, I do think Figma has a lot to offer. So an introduction, Figma is a browser-based UI UX design application. If we have to think of what its main aim and what its main selling points is, it's all about collaborating on a cloud-based platform. So you get to really, well, since I started using Figma at Discovery with Mo and Cara, we've really, I feel, tested and explored how we can really use that element of collaboration to its fullest. So Figma stands out in multiple areas, and whilst its competitors are impressive, it offers the same great platform to more users, especially since it isn't exclusive to Mac. So one of the main points that I think one of the biggest pros to Figma is the fact that it is cloud-based, and most people can access it simply just by having a laptop and a browser. I do find that that is definitely an advantage that they have to reach a greater amount of users. I also think context-wise in South Africa, we have a lot of students and youth that would like to get into UX UI, but already expecting someone to have to buy a MacBook because some of these platforms are strictly Mac-based is already a difficult ask. And I think making it browser-based is a step in the right direction, because then you allow younger students or people trying to get into UX UI to at least have the ability to try it out, dabble in it a bit, and then they can decide if it is or isn't for them. And that's more of their skills, not based on the fact they don't have the financial means to use it.
That's such a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just what I thought I'd have an introduction on. Cool. So when it comes to collaboration, obviously that's their biggest selling point. They do give live real-time collaborating. And what I found working with Mo and Cara is we could literally have a catch-up session, look at each other's documents. Even usually when people have a quick catch-up with their fellow designers, you would do a screen sharing on Microsoft Teams or Google Hangouts. But at times, that isn't great. I don't know if you all have experienced screen sharing is quite lagging and also isn't the best quality. But what we could do on Figma is we could keep Google Hangouts or Microsoft Teams running on audio and then just go into our Figma files, talk and in literally immediate live time, show ideas, change things. Mo could literally give us tutorials on how to do something, for say example, creating a component library and responsive constraints, all those things. So that was definitely something for me I found with the current situation of lockdown and we all being apart from each other. It was still a very great platform to learn and be taught on. So yeah, great news for clients or devs who can view and discuss design changes at the same files that the designer can implement immediately. That's also something that's been very useful, specifically at Discovery, working with business analysts and devs. They can literally, there's a comment feature where they can drop a comment and immediately you know what needs to be changed. There's no emailing each other back and forth or having to export PDFs, edit that in Microsoft Paint like some clients do, and then send it back to you. So that is already a big, I think, a plus on that side of that platform. Then simplified sharing. One thing I must say from going from Sketch to Figma for me was the fact that I didn't have to constantly sync up and re-upload my design changes onto InVision. There's also Abstract and Zeppelin, which people use. So yeah, in that sense, Figma has everything on it. So less is more, and it's all in one, which I like because it's not dependent on these prototyping platforms. You just have to send the link and it's done. Yeah, and also for user testing, I think it's nice that you don't have to tell someone, or not that they need it, they still, in the case of Sketch, it's fine. They can still send a link that the person has to send, just view, but not having to upload and resync everything all the time is a much easier process. Then, since working at Discovery, we've now been exposed to the whole concept of atomic design systems. And as I've now understood Figma a lot better, I must say that going back from Figma to Sketch to see how it works with there. So Figma has symbols, Sketch has symbols and Figma has components. I must say, when it comes to editing components in Figma, there is a little bit more free range and it's easier in some cases. So if I had to explain, when it comes to a instance, you can still edit it relatively more in Figma than you could in a Sketch file. So I'll explain, for example, here, if I have this is a basic input box, and usually with an instance in Sketch, I don't think I would be able to remove, say, the drop-down icon, or be able to remove, say, the assistive text or the input header. But if I quickly show you here, I can see this instance here. I'm able to actually remove the icon, turn it from a drop-down to a standard input, and then also just remove assistive text if I want, or just make it a complete drop down with any assistive text or header. So that was something which I quite like, especially when you're working on that type of atomic design system. And the next thing I want to say, which is also something once I realized and read up doing research, was I haven't had to save a file on my MacBook since using Figma for ages. Even with, it literally, it's a thing of the past for me. When I was working on Sketch, I would get quite, the file sizes weren't massive, but a long period of time working, it does sort of pile up, and eventually now you need to order your files. Whereas with Figma, everything is there. As long as you keep a clean workspace on the actual browser library, that's fine. And you never have to. And also what was nice, some people did say with Figma, oh, but if there is no internet connection, what can you continue working offline? You can if you have the desktop app. And then you can simply save that as a file, similar to how Sketch can. So I do feel the saving of space is quite useful, especially if someone's not working on a high-end computer with the most space, you can still use it pretty well. So yeah, all your files are backed up onto the cloud and you don't need to save anything on your computer. Yeah, everyone gets the gist of that. Then this links to my previous point with the introduction. I do think that its accessibility of Figma is a huge selling point for me. People that are using non-Mac products or even Linux, which is open source, it's definitely something people can benefit from. And I think, yes, like I mentioned earlier, beginners in UX UI having this ability to at least try it out without having to pay much or put much into it, I think you'd have a much a larger intake of people trying it out, and you wouldn't have like a, what you call it, a lag in skills of people trying to get into UX UI. And I think in the times that we live in, where software development is a booming industry, we need to get as many people into it. And I think that starts with younger people being able to access it. Then, yeah, this is now a double-edged sword. When it comes to Figma, the rendering system that they have put in there is very impressive, and they're constantly improving it. So when you actually look at how on a good internet connection, Figma renders a little better than Sketch at times, and they're constantly improving their loading speeds with internet. But then I must admit, the one actual downfall is if the internet is very poor or even just slow, it does take a long time to load a Figma file sometimes if the internet is bad, whereas Sketch does usually open it much faster, I'll admit. And yeah, that can be quite frustrating when you have things to do in a limited amount of time. And then one of the pros also, this basically links to the accessibility, but Figma has a free starter version. So in comparison to some of the competition who don't have a free starter version, it is definitely, I think, a good way to get people to use the product, to try it out, to enjoy it, and then secure more clients. I do realize now that this GIF doesn't exactly match the context of a free product, but yes. So then it's a double-edged sword. The cons are also in the pricing. Here I have now just a little explanation of Figma does have a free starter package. So does my XD. Sketch doesn't at the moment. But if after that, if you actually look at how much it costs for a professional package in Figma, it's 2,480 Rand approximately annually, in comparison to a little cheaper at XD and a lot cheaper in Sketch at 1,703. And then for organizations, Figma is a lot more expensive at 9,300 Rand, and then XD being half the price at about 4,748. And halving it even further, Sketch has 1,858 charge per editor for an organization. So looking at those costs, it's hard to argue. But I do think the value of Figma and what you get and how accessible it is ultimately, then I think counteracts that and makes it still a fair deal. When it came to the actual collaboration thing, it is very nice to have that on Figma, but something that at first for me wasn't something I had to get used to was you can pretty much view every collaborator on the design file. And sometimes you come to realize that while you're busy working, someone is watching you, or even sometimes may interfere with something that you're doing on the design file if you're working on the same object or component. But
that is very creepy.
Yes. I didn't know how to react at first. I at some point did think people were watching me. Turns out they didn't care at all. They were just randomly floating by, looking through different designs. They were searching for something. That's ultimately what it usually is. So yeah, that is one thing that is a little bit unnerving. And yeah, here's just a quick summary of every pro that I found. So collaboration, simplified sharing, space, speed, the free starter version, and then its atomic design system, which is, I feel, ultimately, if I had to be very honest, the product of between Figma, Sketch, and XD, the interface is all based off the original, which was Sketch. Sketch was the first to make the breakthrough, and I feel Figma has simply added to it. So yes, if we had to talk about the interfaces and the tools, they're all relatively the same with slight differences, but then eventually someone creates a plugin to catch up. So they are very similar in that sense. But I felt that these pros did stand out significantly and do make it a more, what's the word? Just desirable, a desirable platform to use. And then, yeah, the cons were the loading speed, the person stalking you while working, and then the cost. And yeah, put simply, I think Figma is terrific. And yeah, I'm very confident, or rather, I have a great attachment to it now that I've been using it and really understand how to use it to its full potential. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. That's been insightful. Okie dokie. Now, I did have something prepared. You can stop sharing, right? And then the next person who's going to join us is Chantal, and I prepared a little song for her. All right.
Okay.
Okay, Chantal. Chantal is going to be covering some sketch for us. So take it away.
Okay, cool. So to start off with, Sketch will and forever and always remain the OG. It was the first tool of its kind. It was the first tool that was basically targeted towards making UX and UI designers' jobs a lot easier in terms of not having to worry too much about how to use a tool, but actually how to make a tool work for them in the work that they want to do. It was released all the way back in 2010, where Figma was only released in 2016, and then XD's beta was also released in 2016. So kind of Figma and XD have basically taken what Sketch has done and basically created a different version of it, or copied it in a way, but also improved upon it a bit. And then in return, Sketch learned from how they improved it and then also applied it to its platform and improved it. So these three tools, the competition between them make our lives a lot better because they are constantly trying to be better than the other one. Then just on Sketch's usage and its popularity. So according to AboCode's report, by the way, AboCode is kind of like an InVision. You can use it to upload any type of design file to share with developers. Last year in 2019, 56% of design files uploaded to that platform was Sketch files. 21% was XD, and for some reason, some people also shared Figma files on there, and that was 20%. And then also that was in 2018, sorry. And then last year, according to UX Design Tools survey, Sketch basically came out on top or in front of Figma and HD in all of the categories. And the categories were brainstorming, user flows, wireframing, UI design, prototyping, handoffs, design systems, meaning that if you land on a project, chances are very good that you will be working in Sketch or having to work with Sketch files. Whether some of the work has been brought over to Figma, chances are you are going to deal with Sketch a lot in projects because it was the first and it is currently still the most popular. So if we break it down, as you saw in Gideon's presentation as well, pricing-wise, Sketch isn't more pricey, but it doesn't have a free version. But it is also quite reasonably priced. It's not over the top, way too expensive. Some of its limitations is that it's only based for or available for Mac, which is something I feel like by now they should have improved on, made it available for other platforms in order to stay competitive with especially XD and Figma. There's also no indication anywhere that they're planning on making it available for other platforms, which is a weird thing for me, but it can always be used offline. So the current pros and cons of Sketch, I'm not going to go into too much detail on Sketch's features because as I mentioned, Figma and XD have made big strides to match Sketch's features. So the features used in Sketch aren't necessarily superior to those of Figma and XD. But one thing that Sketch and Figma actually have above XD is the unlimited workspace. So XD still, like you would have with Illustrator, it only has a set available space for you to be able to work. And also XD can't have different pages the way that Sketch and Figma can, which is also a limitation, especially if we're working with, on a single app with a bunch of features that just have so many screens. So that's one thing that Figma and Sketch actually have that XD don't. And I'm just going to share my screen. I may got a few things present. Just have to excuse me quickly. I just have to give it access, even though I did that the other day.
I updated my iOS the other day, and literally everything I use asks me for permission now at the most inopportune moments.
Yep.
And it's not like you can just say yes. You have to give permissions, and like you have to close your browsers, restart. It's very frustrating. Okay, so we'll wait for Chantal to come back. Are there any questions so far? I only see the battle of illustration going down here in the chat. I haven't seen any actual questions. Although Tim has a comment. He says, one thing he's found with Figma is having one screen open online and one on the desktop is very helpful. How so, Tim? How so?
If you have two screens, I believe.
So in other words, like it's just two windows open.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that that Sketch allows you to do that, to open one file because it's all local. So I don't think it allows you to open sort of two versions of the same file, whereas with Figma you can open one locally on the desktop app and one on the online version.
Ah, okay.
So,
Okay. Oh, good to know. Chantal, are you ready? Almost?
Sorry, yes, it just closed all of my Chrome windows, and in one of those windows are things I wanted to show. So let me just get it back quickly.
Yeah. Luckily, she didn't have any Figma windows open. True story, Mo.
So I don't know if Fatima maybe want to go just while I'm getting everything together again.
Okay, sure. I have a theme song for her too, so please hold. Okay. Fatima, are you ready? You haven't made the mistake of not giving permissions yet, I hope.
No, I'm just trying to find my screen.
Please hold. Your call is important to us. Okay, so Fatima is going to be giving us her pros and cons for Adobe XD. You may take it away. Also, you're muted in case you didn't know.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yep, we can.
Okay, great. So welcome to the Adobe XD Design Talks. I'm just going to be sharing some of my experiences. I know a lot of people haven't used it, and it's also for people who haven't even touched the interface or doesn't know what Adobe XD is entirely. So some of the things we're going to cover is what is Adobe XD, some features, the pros and cons, stuff that I've learned while exploring a new platform, and some resources, and a little demo project. Okay, so what is Adobe XD? Well, according to Adobe, and I think this is one of their best-selling features, is that it's all-in-one, and it's a UX solution for designers to design websites, mobile apps, and more. With the 3 modes that it has, it's design, prototype, and share. You can do all of this within XD. I think that's a really good point, because I particularly didn't like working within too many tools. You can create and share interactive prototypes across team members, devices, and platforms. So it's available for Windows, Mac, iOS, Android. Some background into XD. It was previously known as Project Comet and launched in 2016 for Mac only. And at the time, it had very limited amount of features. But since then, Adobe has released quite a few new updates and features to keep up with the other platforms. And it encourages an open platform based on the user feedback of which they've used and incorporated into implementing the new features that they've have. Currently, I think XD is fast growing into a popular and well-rounded design tool. Some of the features for XD that I've listed are broken down into each of their modes. So the design features are, you can create components, and with the states, you can avoid duplication of components and create variants of components like the hover, pressed, or success states. You can edit in Photoshop, which is incredibly handy. And with repeat grid, you can select a design element and quickly replicate it as many times as you want. For instance, you can update one element and it modifies the entire grid. Other features are the regular vector drawing tools, response resize, Adobe Fonts integration, precision design tools. You can also import your Sketch, Photoshop, Illustrator files. These files are automatically converted into XD files, so you don't have to start from scratch. With the asset exports as well, you can mark them and send them as a design specs link to the developers, so they can download all the assets in the file formats that they need. Some new features that Adobe has added is resizing area text content to fit the content box, content-aware layout features as well. They're constantly adding new features, and you can check this out on their features page. The prototyping mode has these features, of which is really cool. It's interactions. You can connect your artboards and use a range of triggers and actions to kind of define the flow and the experience that you want to create. With triggers, there are common touch gestures that you can replicate on mobile devices like tap and drag, keyboard and time-based transitions, as well as voice commands and game controllers. With their in preview mode, you can view your prototypes in real time on XD mobile's apps for iOS and Android. But sadly, if you're using XD on Windows 10, real-time preview is not available for Android. With the auto animation tool, it's really cool because you can create micro interactions across your artboards. Let's say if you duplicate an element and change its properties like size, position, or color, XD bridges the differences to automatically generate an animation. So basically, you create the start frame and the end frame, and XD auto animates the frames in between. It's a really handy feature, and I think one of their really nice and cool features for prototyping. It also supports overlay support, preserve scroll position, and you can also export to After Effects to create more robust animations. With voice commands and audio playback, there are new features, so you can add voice commands, sound effects, or audio files to your prototypes to make them more dynamic and realistic.
You can add audio?
Yeah, I'm going to show you that in the demo project.
Nice.
Okay, so there's share mode. It has co-editing, and it's now included offline support. With document history, you can view previous or bookmark versions. You can share and create a link for review or send to the development team. Invite to edit with permissions. You can invite other designers to collaborate and set link access and permissions. Has cloud documents. You can also record previews of your prototypes, which is really cool. Companion apps, you can download apps for iOS and Android and view them on that, as well as having multi-language support. Adobe also has a list of extensions, so you can use and create plugins. There's a list of available plugins. Stark is pretty cool for accessibility. There's also a lot of UI kits available from Apple to Material. They have app integrations, and XD scales pretty well with design systems because of Creator Cloud library support and linked assets. Some pros and cons that I've seen. I think the pros is that XD is very, very simple in terms of the interface, so it makes it fast and easy to use. So I think a first-time user will really grasp it really well. And it supports Adobe CC libraries and connects well with other products. It's a really, really good prototyping tool and animation tool, which you'll see in the demo project. It does have a free starter plan, but it also has some limitations within that. Some of the cons, there's no dark theme yet. Because XD is still fairly new and developing, it doesn't have many tools and add-ons as the other platforms like Sketch and so forth. And it also relates to the next point with lack of or slow plugin support. The interface is also very different from other Adobe tools. So if you're a regular Adobe user, you may find it a little bit frustrating at first, and it may be a little bit of a learning curve. Also, it lacks more complex animation features like timeline animations and so forth. I've seen other applications that can do a little more in terms of the prototyping and the animations. So yeah, I think those are the cons that I've covered. So what I've learned and some resources. So what I've learned in designing in a new platform is there's always a tutorial, and if you always get stuck, or you can call a friend, and preferably a designer friend. 2, I'll try to keep an open mind when experimenting in a new platform. I know it's really frustrating at first when things don't work the way you'd like it to work, but I think keeping an open mind will limit the I hate these fears to maybe I could learn to work with them. Thirdly, you could use UI kits to speed up your wireframing and learning. This helped me quite a bit, and it helps if you're against the time. Less assumptions, the better. Also, this was incredibly frustrating for me that Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign shortcuts and features don't exactly work the same in XD. So there's not much consistency between the applications in terms of that. So I strongly believe in getting hands-on experience. So I think playing around in the platform and playing around with the elements and trying to learn as much as you can. I know you may break things, but I think failing many times, but you'll eventually get there and start making the stuff that you intended to make. Some wisdom. Okay, again, there's always tutorials and guides to save the day. Some that I find useful and I found useful for XD is letsxd.com, their official site, which is helpxd.com, and xdguru.com as well. We're going to quickly look at the interface and a little demo project that I've created. So I'm going to just try and find out how am I going to share the other screen.
No, it stopped presenting for some reason. Okay, it's loading. Okay, we can see that you can see your screen.
Okay. Can you see it now?
No, I think it's disappeared again.
Yeah.
Obviously, it doesn't like to share XD. That's rude. Okay.
Maybe it's also like a permission thing in your settings.
Yeah. Does it count as a con? Yes, I think so. It's not very presentation friendly, which is weird because I've done this before with you actually on a project before. You've shared your XD screen, so that's odd. Okay, so since that can't be shared, do you have anything else left on your presentation, or can we move to Chantal while we figure this out? Wait, let's see. Okay, you're presenting. There we go. Okay, we can see it. No, we can see it.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you see it?
And I can see a screen.
Okay, great. I think it just took a while.
Okay.
Okay, great. So basically, this is the home screen for XD. You can see a bunch of the presets at the top here with some links to getting started with tutorials. Some of your recent files here. With your add-ons, there's plugins, there's UI kits and app integrations that you can download and view. What's new takes you to their new features page. Learn and support takes you to their tutorials. And XD encourages feedback. So if you have feedback to provide, it would be really cool. So we can look at the interface quickly. There's 3 modes: the design, prototype, and share. The interface is very minimal and it almost looks like you can't do much with this. The left panel shows your vector drawing tools. Here is your assets panel where all your colors, your character styles, your components, your libraries will exist. Your layers panel, which has your artboards as well, and plugins where you can add cool public plugins as well. So if I click on an element, you can see the property inspector here with your alignment tools, repeat grids, create components, your layout settings, blend modes, and your color pickers. The prototype mode, it's fairly simple to create a prototype and some interaction. So you'll click on the object, you click on this blue arrow, click and drag to your destination artboard, and it creates an interaction. I'm gonna quickly show you the interaction that I've made here. So basically I've selected a tap interaction, and there's other options as well. The type of interaction I've selected is auto animate. I've selected the destination artboard, and I've chosen some easing settings here with a duration of 2 seconds. I've also added a secondary action, which is the cool audio playback feature, and I've selected the audio file. I'm going to quickly demo what a tap gesture would look like on in the preview mode. So you can just look at this. This is just a concept that I built using some of the Apple UI elements. It's really quick to just use them if you're running on time and stuff like that. And I've really liked these bands lately, so I've decided to use them. I may not have had a cool ending beginning song, but hopefully this is a nice ending song. So basically when I click on play, you'll see the tap gesture animation and you'll hear the audio playback. So you see the image expand and the text move from the top to the bottom. When I click pause, it reduces the image size to the first screen. So basically auto animate is taking your first screen and your second screen and animating the in-between screens for those. We're going to quickly look at what a drag gesture is like in the preview mode. So if I click this and drag, it brings it up to the second song. And if I click and drag again, it takes me to the initial artboard. These are very simple interactions to build in fact. And some tips when creating with auto animate is that the layers have to be named exactly the same. Otherwise, auto animate will not recognize them. as well as planning your animations in advance really helps when making cool prototypes. And if I'd like to share this, I'll just come over here with the link settings and I can share to development with design specs or send for design review. Also export the assets for web, iOS, Android, and set link permissions here. You can also view the document history and add collaborators. And if you ring on your device, it will show here. That's basically Adobe XD in a nutshell and what you can do, but there's a whole lot of features that you can learn and do with auto animate, like adding voice commands as well, which is really cool. So yeah, I hope that this was helpful in terms of getting people interested in playing around in XD and seeing what they can do. I think one of the best selling features is prototyping and animation. So yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Chantal, I'm not playing you an intro song again, okay? So
No,
you're gonna have to pick that from there.
That would just be embarrassing. Okay. Okay, I can do the thing now.
Yes, I'll let you know if it actually starts presenting. Yes, it's starting. It's busy loading. And we can see your screen.
Can you see a Chrome thing that says resources?
I can see resources, yes.
Okay, so picking up from where I left off. Okay, so one thing, because Sketch is have been out there for 10 years already, one thing that Sketch actually has the best of is actually its resources, its libraries, its UI kits available, all of the different resources. Kind of, if you find a limitation in Sketch, you basically just have to go and search. There's probably a limiter or a plugin that kind of solves that problem for you. One downside about that of that is that when you upgrade Sketch, some of the plugins might break, which is a shame, especially the next plugin I'm going to show you, because the next topic I am going to touch on is handover and collaboration, which is where Figma and maybe even XD does outshine Sketch. So there's this one cool plugin. Oh, I also just wanted to mention there's a bunch of different sites that have different Sketch plugins and UI kits, and most of them are usually for free. Some of them does cost money because some people are greedy, but most of them are actually for free. So one plugin that I recently discovered, and I actually wished I discovered earlier, is Sketch Measure. So this basically allows you to export Sketch files or Sketch artboards as it exports it as an HTML file, and then you can open it, and then it basically looks like this, and then you don't even need to export to InVision or anything like that. It does show you all of these things that you would be able to see in InVision, and because it's a free plugin, you don't have to pay the price that you would for Zeppelin or InVision. So it shows you the paddings. You can play around with the settings so that it shows you pixels or DP or whatever, things like that. It shows you the different icons where it is. You can click on it and download it from there. So that is, for me, quite a good plugin that could replace Zeppelin or InVision, except unfortunately this plugin broke when I updated my Sketch. On a forum, there is a way to fix it. I just haven't gone into doing it yet. So there are ways of fixing it, actually. And then on the collaboration front, so I think Sketch saw what Figma's benefits for the collaboration part, as well as it being on the cloud. And Sketch is doing a lot of new stuff regarding their own Sketch cloud. So if I can just show you here, they are starting to introduce teams, so you can create a team. It does seem like it costs more. I'm not sure if you can just have Sketch teams or if you have to have the base license and then pay this on top of that, but you basically pay a price per contributor, not per viewers. So the contributors are only the designers, so you would only pay for the designers who's actually going to edit files, and then for anyone who's just going to view the files, it is free. But I can show you the what they are already working on. Let me just get this video. So this is basically, you can upload your sketch files to the cloud on a team, and then it is like a handover tool currently for developers. So if we can just watch this video. And this, as far as I can see, you can also, just like with Figma, work directly off of Sketch Cloud. So all of your files are on the cloud. You don't have to store it on your desktop, and you can work off of that. And things that they are currently working on to add to that, let me just, our roadmap, is they are working on real-time collaboration and editing, being able to add comments and annotations, having advanced sharing options. So it does seem like pretty soon we are going to be seeing a lot more of Figma's benefits being translated into the Sketch teams and Sketch Cloud, which I'm really excited for. If I'm just hoping they let go of this additional price that we might have to pay. We'll maybe just have to look into that. But yeah, that's just something I found cool, because that is currently the thing that Figma can hold over Sketch, and it does seem like they are looking into it and actually trying to improve it. So maybe one of these days we can have a Figma experience in Sketch as well. And then just on prototyping, this is where Sketch is lacking a lot. It is very basic. It is quite dumb, and that is something that I agree that XD is doing great on. Prototyping in XD is very cool, but what we can always do is, because you can open sketch files in XD and it basically looks exactly the same. So we could always think about opening sketch files in XD and prototyping in there. That could be an option. But yeah, that's all from me.
Awesome. Thanks, you three. Okay, so questions, anybody? Or maybe statements of faith within their preferred system, I guess.
Are we going to vote and declare a winner?
I don't know, because I still like Sketch.
It's a three-way tie.
It's a three-way tie. Yeah. I guess we could. I will send out a voting form afterwards and I'll announce the winner on Monday. How does that sound?
How many times can one person vote?
Oh, just once. Just once. There can only be one winner, therefore there can only be one vote. That's the logic I'm using.
I have a question though.
Yeah, go for it.
So, what would you guys suggest for like a beginner? Like straightforward fundamentals, basics. What would you suggest for a beginner?
Well, I gave Figma because it's free based. That's the only reason why.
Yeah, I would agree with that totally. Oh, thanks, Anna.
Oh,
because you don't need a Mac to use Figma. That's also a reason.
Yeah, that kind of helps as well.
And Macs are cack expensive.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. So guys, ultimately, if you use Figma, there's no way you're going back.
I don't know if that's true, because what happens if the improvements on Sketch start kicking Figma's ass? I'm just saying.
So the thing is, we started using Sketch when we started at Retro. Well, I personally started using Sketch when I started at Retro.
Yeah.
And then with Discovery, just to get all the designers on track, we moved to Figma. And I think having all the designers on Figma, I don't think the chances of moving anywhere else is that great. So I suppose it also comes down to what the organization is using.
Yeah. So I've also been working in Figma, and I have to say I really enjoy it, especially just the way components work and how you share a component library. It's like everything is literally just in one place. You don't have to wonder where you can find a sketch file or who you need to message and find out if this sketch file is up to date. So even though I have to be pro sketch here, in this instance, I have been enjoying Figma quite a lot.
So here's the thing. What I notice in most of my demos is that while we're in the demo, they would require changes. And then like I do the changes as they speak. And then they quite fascinated as to how quick, you know, it actually uploads. So I know with Sketch, for example, you got to go to InVision and then upload it. It takes a while. And then, you know, then only it shows the changes. So Figma, like for me, if I had to choose a 3, my vote is already Figma.
I did put the link to the straw poll. Thanks, Vanna. So you guys can go and vote now, and then I can announce the winner at the end of the talk.
So I agree with you, Vishalin, but I am quite excited for this new thing that Sketch is doing with the Sketch Cloud stuff. It does seem like they're at least trying to keep up with what Figma is doing. Maybe they will even improve upon that. So maybe it's just the thing of watch Sketch's space.
So here's the thing, right? So for example, if I'm working on Figma and I don't hear of any new developments on either or, so on a Sketch and on XD, for example, I'd still continue using Figma. You know what I'm saying? Unless somebody really comes to me and says, you know what, there's been some changes, there's been new developments and enhancements on you know, let's say Sketch, then maybe I'd try it. And if I feel that the experience is a bit better, then maybe I'd move to Sketch in that regard, you know?
Yeah.
But somebody would need to tell me, unless I'm doing my own research, which probably not.
Yeah.
I can change your mind if you want.
Really?
So for those who've been working with me, they know how vocal I've been about using XD. And I think for me, it's the greatest tool you will ever get to use in the history of tools in the world.
So did you start using XD?
Bold claim.
Was that your first?
So basically, I started up with Sketch, and then I moved to XD, and I could never go back to Sketch. So when I joined Retro, I don't know. At some point, I was interested in actually learning Sketch again, but then it was above me. I just couldn't get back to Sketch. Like everything just felt very backwards. No offense, guys. I'm sorry. I don't want to offend anyone, but that's how it felt. That's really how it felt. And then I don't know. Look, just XDs with all the features they're just adding on the monthly basis. It's just it makes it so easy to use and so user friendly as well. So also to go back to the question the restaurant was asking earlier, I think a beginner should actually start with XD because of how just user friendly and just easy to tackle it is. And also, if you want to, if you're just using one user, then it's actually free. And when you're actually using a team, then you have to pay for the tool. But initially, it's a free tool.
Okay. I've actually got that from another sort of like beginner as well, where they started with XD. And then because it's free and it is really, really user friendly, and there's a lot of like material on YouTube and things like that. So as a beginner, we've actually started looking at things as well.
So Francis, can you set up like a design system on XD like you can in Sketch and Figma?
Can I set up a design system on XD?
Yeah, so one UI kit and then...
Oh, no, sure, definitely.
Can you do
it? Yeah, no, cool. Yeah, I've done it before.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's just,
it was very easy to set up as well.
All of the things I've been reading about XD while I was doing the research and stuff, it just said that the symbols or components aspect of XD is still lacking behind quite a lot. So I was just wondering how you do it there.
And I would have to know lacking in what way, because using components is actually very easy. Okay. And also yeah, it's just quite editable. Like once you change something, if you want to change one component within the document so that it affects everything else, you can just do so, and it's basically just a click of a button.
Okay.
No, it's very user friendly. That's my feeling.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, go for it.
So it's more kind of like it's for Fatima on the like.
She here. I saw she dropped out. Now let me just check. Yeah, she's here. Okay, cool.
Okay, so back then, like when I first dabbled around in XD, like just was probably about a year or two after they released it. Importing sketch files wasn't great because that's my biggest issue with like switching technologies or like software you're working with is nothing is compatible. So back then when I imported like sketch files, it would put in the sketch files relatively well, but then there will be like stuff like the text boxes that you would have like one letter in a text box or like some weird stuff like the icons would derp out. Does that still happen?
So in other words, did you guys test it? Can you tell us?
I haven't tested that particularly myself because I'm still very new to Sketch, but I know that they've made significant improvements in terms of that. I think they have the ability now to convert Sketch libraries into cloud documents as well. So, and you can use Sketch libraries as assets as part of your design system in XD.
Okay, that's cool.
So I did it the other day, but it was only a sketch file with wireframe, so it was just very basic things, and everything seemed fine. Nothing was broken. I don't know higher level designs. I haven't tested that yet, but the wireframes looked pretty much the same as it did on Sketch.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? There's lots of people on this call. I see some devs too. Hi, devs.
So one thing I didn't know was that the live preview on XD using the app and Windows 10 wasn't compatible. I wasn't aware of that. To be fair, I've only used it on my Mac, so that was actually something that I learned today.
Okay. Well, that's good. All right. Has everybody casted their vote? Okay, I only have 4, 5, 6, well, including Mo's, 7 votes. Guys, go get your votes in before the polls close. Oh, you still can't vote, Dari. Even on River.
Yeah, it says that a VPN user voting is not allowed.
I get the same error as well.
Okay, I will just make little icons then.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right. Any other questions? I think that it was super interesting myself to see how actually very similar everything was in terms of like it. In general, the features are very similar. Obviously, there's the nuances which put them over the edge, but that was quite interesting for me. Also, I've never used XD in my life, so that was quite cool. All right, I'm almost done adding the XD icon. All right, you can go and vote with those icons on random then, since this platform is giving me a hard time. And then you will see who the winner will be. All right. Okay, so thank you very much, Chantal, Gideon, and Fatima. That was very illuminating, I think. I think that it was interesting to see kind of like how all of them work, because I don't think most of us get to work on them unless the clients actually use them. So that's pretty cool.